The training material that you are about to see is intended as a general overview of the subject being presented. This training is not being offered as an in-depth course and may not address all aspects of the subject matter being discussed. Always follow your plant's policies and procedures, which may differ from the video. MTS training videos frequently feature exercise questions designed to test the knowledge and awareness of the employees viewing the training. When the question mark symbol appears in the corner of the screen, you may choose to press pause on your video player and discuss the exercise question.
The tragic Great Chicago Fire of October 8th and 9th, 1871 affected countless lives, killing over 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 structures, and burned more than 2,000 acres. Those who survived never forgot the tragedy, and it changed the way firefighters and public officials thought about fire safety. It was not until 1925 that the President of the United States signed a proclamation establishing the National Observance of Fire Prevention Week during the week in which October 9th falls, which makes Fire Prevention Week the longest-running public health and safety observance on record. The biggest goal of Fire Prevention Week is to educate and inform the public about the importance of fire prevention. In turn, this training will provide you with information on the different types of fire extinguishers, how to properly use a fire extinguisher, recommended hot work practices, and the importance of emergency action plans.
Some of the fire hazards in my work area consist of hydraulic oil around machinery and combustible materials such as fluff, rubber, and cloth.
Some of the fire hazards in our work area are fluff, oil, any kind of debris that's on the ground, gas, different combustibles, and carbon. To prevent a fire in your work area, you want to keep everything as clean as possible. Keep a regular housekeeping routine and make sure and maintain that.
By removing or wetting all combustible materials before doing any hot work.
Keep sparks away from gas tanks and maintain a clean work area.
Fires in the workplace can be catastrophic, and because of the serious danger of fire, it is important to know how to prevent fires and what to do should a fire erupt in your work area. The key to fire prevention is identifying and eliminating fire hazards. It is easy to take for granted some of the everyday hazards that, if overlooked, can contribute to a fire. Therefore, good housekeeping is one of the best fire prevention methods. Recently, an employee was working at his operation when he noticed smoke rising up beside a hydraulic unit. When he investigated the nature of the smoke, he saw that oil and debris in the hydraulic oil containment tray had ignited. He retrieved a fire extinguisher and extinguished the fire. It was determined that sparks from someone grinding nearby were thrown directly into the hydraulic unit tray, causing the oil and debris to ignite. In order to keep your work area free of fire hazards, do not allow debris such as paper, cardboard, rags, dust, or other flammable materials to accumulate. Also, do not allow oil or grease to build up on or around your equipment. Clean your work area as often as necessary to prevent the accumulation of flammable materials. The most common cause of scrap pile fires is lead-acid batteries in scrap piles. To prevent such fires, every precaution must be taken to prevent lead-acid batteries from entering scrap piles, and scrap that appears to be oily or covered with grease should be segregated. Also, procedures should be implemented to reduce the height of scrap piles and to provide adequate space between piles. While taking the various steps to prevent fires is crucial to workplace safety, it is still important to know where fire extinguishers are located and how to use them properly. In the event of a fire, there are critical elements to consider because the correct use of a fire extinguisher could mean the difference between a minor incident and a major fire. First of all, if you see a fire, you must determine if it is safe to extinguish. Secondly, you must know the class of fire involved and the correct type of fire extinguisher to use. Fires are classified according to the type of material that is burning. There are 4 classes of fires that you might encounter in your work environment. The classes are: Class A are fires where ordinary combustibles such as wood, paper, or textiles have ignited. Class B are fires that involve flammable liquids such as gasoline and solvents. Class C are electrical fires. Class D involve combustible metals such as sodium, lithium, and titanium. Knowing the class of fire is half the battle because you must also know how to select the proper extinguisher before attempting to fight any fire. Fire extinguishers contain different extinguishing agents and are labeled with letters that correspond to the class of fire they are intended to extinguish. The most common types are ABC and BC extinguishers. Since not every extinguisher can be used on every fire, always check the label to ensure you are using the correct extinguisher. Can you identify the hazard in this scene? The silver air pressurized water extinguisher should not be near the electrical panels. Water extinguishers are best suited for Class A combustible fires and should never be used on Class C fires.
Yeah, there's only been one time that I've had to use a fire extinguisher, but it was a very small, incipient fire, I guess you'd say. Some material came out of the shredder and unfortunately it caught on fire while in there. Ended up in the fluff pile, so we had to extinguish the flame.
If a fire does break out in your work area, before using a fire extinguisher, be sure to assess the area. Only use a fire extinguisher if the fire is in the incipient stage and you feel the fire can be extinguished with one extinguisher. If you choose to use a fire extinguisher, the way it is used is critical in determining its effectiveness. To properly use a fire extinguisher, you should remember the acronym PASS. It represents the steps you need to follow. P, or pull the locking pin that prevents the extinguisher from accidentally discharging. A, or aim the extinguisher at the base of the fire. Move a safe distance away from the fire, making sure your exit from the area is not blocked. S, or squeeze the handle to release the extinguishing agent. S, or sweep the extinguishing agent from side to side. Start at a safe distance from the fire and gradually move toward the fire as you work to cover over the ignited material. After the flames have gone out, do not turn your back to the fire, but rather wait a few moments to make sure the fire does not reignite. Once you are certain the fire is not going to reignite, follow your company's procedure for taking a used fire extinguisher out of service and put a new one in its place. Remember that you should never attempt to extinguish large spreading fires. Make sure that you have a clear exit. You do not want to become trapped if the fire spreads. These types of fires need to be extinguished by professionals. Can you identify the hazards in this scene? These items are blocking the fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers must be readily accessible at all times.
Anytime we do hot work, we want to make sure that the area is clean, and we also want to have a permit filled out and then let everybody know what's going on around us.
I witnessed employees doing hot work on an upper level at the downstream, and sparks ignited flammable materials on a lower level.
Hot work describes any process that uses open flames or produces heat or sparks. The heat or sparks can ignite flammable or combustible materials nearby and result in a fire. Common hot work activities include welding, soldering, cutting, grinding, and brazing. Spark-producing power tools, such as grinders, can also be considered hot work processes when flammable or combustible materials are present during these activities. An employee was welding, and some of the sparks ignited some combustible material nearby. A coworker was able to put the fire out with an extinguisher. During the investigation, it was determined that the employee was performing the welding outside a designated area and neglected to complete a hot work permit. Although the fire was extinguished and no one was injured, it is important to know that any fire in the workplace has the potential to be serious. Therefore, before beginning any type of hot work outside of a designated area, a hot work permit must be completed to assure all proper precautions are taken to prevent fires from igniting. As part of a hot work permit, there are several steps that must be followed to reduce the likelihood of a fire. The work area must be assessed to identify items that have the potential to ignite. These items must be relocated at least 35 feet or 11 meters away from the work area, or guards must be used to confine the flames or sparks to protect any immovable fire hazards. Suitable fire extinguishing equipment must be obtained and placed near the hot work activity. A fire watch must be identified and stationed in the work area whenever hot work is performed. The person assigned as a fire watch plays a very important role in fire prevention. The fire watch is responsible for having a fire extinguisher readily available and knowing how to properly use it, watching for fires, knowing how to sound the alarm in the event of a fire, and attempting to extinguish a fire. The fire watch must remain in the area throughout the entire duration of the hot work activities, and also for 30 to 60 minutes after the hot work has been completed to monitor the area for fires. By properly following these practices, the chances of hot work activities starting a fire will significantly reduce, if not be eliminated.
Whenever there's a fire, we want to evaluate what's going on around it, make sure that it's not too big for us to handle. If it's above the incipient stage, we want to get out of the way and let someone professionally handle it.
We had an explosion at the shredder one time, at which time it created a big fire that caught a rubber mat on fire. We assessed the situation to see if we was going to have to do an evacuation, but we're able to put it out with fire extinguishers.
While knowing how to use a fire extinguisher is very important, it is crucial to know when and how to evacuate. When a fire is or becomes too large to put out with one fire extinguisher, you need to take alternative actions immediately. Call the emergency number and follow your company's evacuation procedures. Move quickly to the nearest exit. If you encounter heavy smoke, change your exit route to the next available exit. If this is not possible, get low to the ground and crawl to your exit. Smoke and heat rise, so by staying low to the ground, you will encounter more oxygen and less heat. As you exit, move away from the building exterior and proceed immediately to the designated assembly area to be accounted for. Do not re-enter the building until the all clear has been issued. If you are in an office or conference room with the door closed when the alarm is activated or when you start smelling smoke, you will need to carefully feel the door using the back of your hand. If the door is hot, do not open it and remain in the room. Open any available windows and, if you can, contact the local emergency group to let them know you are trapped. If you feel no heat coming from the door, partially open it while standing behind it for protection. Once the door is open, identify the best way out and begin evacuating. If a fire emergency does occur, understanding your company's emergency action plan is the key to be a successful workplace evacuation. Fire prevention refers to precautions that are taken to prevent or reduce the likelihood of a fire that may result in death, injury, or property damage, and preparing for a fire emergency plays an important role in creating a safe work environment. Everyone must cooperate to ensure the workplace is safe from fire and its effects. Never place yourself or others at risk.